They thought $350 could erase me. That a line on an expense report was enough to bury 10 years of my life. They were wrong. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't fight in the conference room. I simply opened my laptop, the same one that had kept their world breathing at 3 in the morning, and I reviewed the licenses they'd never once read. My name is Lily Hayes. For a decade, I was the invisible engineer behind Westbridge Technology's digital heartbeat, the ghost in their servers. I wasn't in the glossy annual reports or smiling in photo ops. I was the one who patched the failing database during a thunderstorm, who traced a memory leak through a maze of microservices before the CFO even knew a problem existed. My code wasn't flashy, but it kept the lights on. And for 10 years, I stayed in the shadows. The morning everything changed started quietly enough. A gray March sky hung over San Francisco, the kind of sky that made the bay look like steel. I was in the office early, as usual, nursing my second cup of black coffee while I reviewed overnight logs. All green, no errors. My systems had once again done their silent job. "Lily, got a minute?" I looked up. Standing by my desk was Marcus Klein, our brand new CTO. 6 weeks into the role and already notorious. Tall, sharp suit, and the kind of smile that looked like it had been practiced in a mirror. Harvard MBA, no technical background. He'd been hired, according to the company-wide email, to modernize operations and streamline costs. Translation: make cuts, shake things up, and remind the board why they were paying him $500,000 a year. "Sure," I said, locking my screen. He didn't sit. Power move number 1. Instead, he pulled out a folder, flipped it open, and slid a single sheet toward me. "We've been reviewing expenses. This one stands out." I scanned the paper. A $350 hotel bill. My stomach sank. "That was the night of the Denver outage," I said evenly. "The data center fire. I flew out at 3 a.m. when no one else would. Stayed overnight because the return flights were grounded." Marcus tilted his head. "Still, it's irregular. Booking on your own card without prior approval. Finance flagged it." I submitted the receipt. It was pending reimbursement. "Not anymore." His voice was smooth, rehearsed. "The board sees this as a serious violation. Misuse of company funds. I'm afraid it's grounds for termination." For a moment, all I could hear was the hum of the servers in the next room. 10 years reduced to a hotel bill. "You're firing me. Over $350? I asked quietly. Marcus didn't flinch. "Security will escort you out. Your belongings will be mailed." I stood, more out of muscle memory than conscious thought, and gathered my mug, my notebook. Around us, the office buzzed on, oblivious. Keys clacking, phones ringing. No one realized they were watching an execution. "Your badge and laptop," Marcus said, hand outstretched. I unclipped the badge from my belt, set it on the desk, and slid my laptop across. Each movement precise. Controlled. Inside, something colder was already spinning up, like code compiling in the background. "Anything else?" I asked. He smiled, the kind of smile men like him use when they think they've won. "Number security will see you out." The guard, young and uncomfortable, appeared at my elbow, probably making minimum wage to escort someone who'd built systems before he'd finished high school. "Sorry about this," he muttered. "Not your fault," I said. The elevator ride stretched into eternity. 23 floors of silence, numbers blinking down one by one. By the time we reached the lobby, that cold calculation had hardened into something sharper. They thought $350 was worth more than 10 years of knowledge. They thought I'd vanish quietly, like I'd always worked quietly. But they had no idea what they'd just purchased. Outside, the rain had turned to mist. I stepped onto Market Street with nothing but my bag, my notebook, and the knowledge that Westbridge Technologies was still running on code they didn't own. Code I had written. Code I had licensed. Code I had meticulously documented. The same code they had just cut loose with me. I pulled out my phone, Scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I needed. Rachel Monroe. My law school roommate, now one of the sharpest intellectual property attorneys in the city. She answered on the second ring. Lily, it's been forever. Coffee? I asked. I need to discuss some licensing issues. Her tone shifted instantly. Serious? Very. I looked back at Westbridge's gleaming tower, its logo glittering through the drizzle. They fired me today. Over $350. There was a pause, then Rachel's voice sharpened. Oh, Lily, they have no idea what they've just done, do they? I smiled faintly, pulling my jacket tighter as the mist clung to my hair. No, I said, but they're about to learn. Rachel raised an eyebrow. That's creative. After 10 years? 10 years, I said. One fire after another, one 3 a.m. call after another, one system crash avoided after another. And all of it gone because a CTO wanted to show he's tough on expenses. Marcus Klein? You've heard of him? She smirked. Everyone's heard of him. He's a case study waiting to happen. The kind of exec who thinks code is a liability and engineers are replaceable. Her words cut, because I'd felt replaceable for years, but I shook that off and pulled out my personal laptop. That's why I called you. I need to know where I stand. I opened GitHub. Repo after repo, each carefully documented, each with timestamps, commit histories, and license files I'd drafted myself. I turned the screen toward her. These libraries, I said. I wrote them on my own time, on my own equipment. I integrated them into Westbridge's systems because they needed solutions, and I wasn't about to watch us go down when I could fix it. Rachel leaned forward, scrolling. MIT license here, GPL here. Wait. She froze at one repo. This one's your custom license? Yeah, drafted it 3 years ago. Free for personal use. Requires commercial licensing for any for-profit entity. Her eyes widened. And they've been using this in production? For years, I said. Payment systems, authentication layers, even their internal monitoring. It's everywhere. Rachel leaned back, smiling slowly. You paranoid genius. You've been preparing for this. Not preparing, I corrected. Surviving. I learned early that companies love using your work, but hate paying for it. So I made sure the terms were clear, even if no one ever bothered to read them. She tapped her pen against the table. How much are we talking about? I pulled up my tracking dashboard. Every API call logged, every build process recorded, every instance spun up. Conservative estimate? $2 million in licensing fees. Maybe more once we calculate the damages for unauthorized use. Rachel whistled low. That's not pocket change. It's not about the money, I said. It's about 10 years of invisible work, about being the ghost they only remembered when things broke. And now they've made me visible. Rachel studied me for a long moment. Okay, first step, we document everything. Every commit, every Slack message, every time your repos were used in production. I'll make the case airtight. Already done. I slid a USB drive across the table. 3 years of logs, build pipelines, internal messages, everything. She laughed, shaking her head. You're either the most prepared client I've ever had, or the most dangerous. Maybe both. Her tone shifted, serious now. Lily, once we send this, there's no going back. You'll be burning every bridge. Any chance of going back, gone. Are you ready for that? I looked down at my coffee, the surface rippling as I exhaled. I thought about the years of silence, of watching others take credit, of Marcus smiling as he held out his hand for my badge. They lit the match when they fired me, I said quietly. All I'm doing is choosing where the fire spreads. Rachel nodded. Then let's spread it carefully. We spent the next 2 hours sketching a plan. Rachel would prepare the demand letter, citing every license violation. I would continue monitoring Westbridge's usage from the outside. My hook still embedded in the libraries gave me real-time visibility. How long do you want to wait? She asked as we packed up. Long enough for it to hurt, I said. for them to feel the absence before they realize the cost. That's cold. That's business. They taught me that this morning. When I left the cafe, the drizzle had stopped. The city lights glistened on wet pavement, sharp and unforgiving. I walked home slowly, laptop heavy in my bag, mind racing. My apartment felt strange at 2 p.m. on a weekday. Too quiet. I set down my bag, placed the succulent from my desk on the windowsill, and opened my laptop. Out of habit, I checked Westbridge's public status page. All green, all systems humming. My code still doing its job, even as HR processed my termination paperwork. The irony didn't escape me, but I knew those green lights wouldn't last, because Marcus thought he'd saved $350, and he had no idea what that decision was about to cost him. The first week after my termination was quiet. Too quiet. For the first time in 10 years, I wasn't waking at 2 a.m. to a Slack ping or an emergency call. I went for morning runs. I cooked dinner without checking error logs. I even slept through the night, though my dreams still carried the hum of server fans. But habits don't die easily. Every morning, I opened my laptop, not to log in to Westbridge systems. They'd revoked my access instantly, but to check my own monitoring dashboard. Because what Marcus didn't know was this. My libraries weren't just code dumps. They were living systems. Every API call, every integration, every unusual spike. I'd built telemetry hooks into them. Not malicious, not backdoors, just the kind of responsible monitoring any open source maintainer would keep. And it gave me a window into their world. On Tuesday, I saw the first flicker. A junior developer pushed a cleanup commit, removing what they thought were redundant error handlers. I recognized the fingerprints immediately. Logan-style thinking, clean, simple, pretty. Except those handlers weren't redundant. They were protecting against obscure edge cases in a third-party API. By Thursday, response times had spiked. Not enough for the public to notice, but enough that I knew they'd introduced a race condition. Give it a week, maybe 2, and they'd have their first outage. Friday afternoon it came. My phone buzzed with a news alert while I was standing in line at the grocery store. Westbridge Technologies suffers payment processing outage. Thousands of transactions affected. I dropped a carton of eggs into my basket, pulled up the public status page on my phone. Still green. They were hiding it. But my telemetry told the truth. The payment service was eating memory like wildfire. I could picture it. Dashboards flashing red, engineers scrambling, Marcus pacing and demanding answers. 3 hours later, they'd rolled back the commit. Service restored, but the damage done. A few thousand failed transactions, enough for CFOs to start asking why. That night, Rachel called. "You see the news?" I saw. Stock dipped 2% already. People are spooked. I stirred my pasta. "And this is just the beginning." She chuckled. "You're enjoying this." "I'm enjoying the justice." The following week, the cracks widened. Their monthly deployment cycle was scheduled. Big updates. Multiple services touched at once. I knew the pipeline better than anyone. I had built it, patched it, kept it alive with duct tape and stubbornness. Saturday morning, coffee in hand, I watched from my balcony as my dashboard lit up like a Christmas tree. Service A deployed successfully, but expected Service B's new API. Service B couldn't start because Service C's migrations were incomplete. Service C waited on Service A's lock. Deadlock. Circular dependency. The whole system grinding to a halt. I leaned back in my chair, sipping coffee, imagining the war room. Marcus sweating under the fluorescent lights. Engineers huddled over laptops. Pizza boxes piling up. The frantic search for a fix. By Sunday morning, the outage had made headlines. Second major disruption at Westbridge in 10 days. Their stock dropped another 3%. LinkedIn lit up with recruiters circling like sharks, messaging Westbridge engineers who were tired of firefighting. That afternoon, my phone rang. Westbridge corporate prefix. I hesitated, then answered. "Lily?" The voice was Marcus. I smiled. "Marcus, didn't expect to hear from you." I need to clear something up." We've had some technical issues. I read the news. You know our system's better than anyone. If you could just point us in the right direction. I don't work there anymore, remember? Still, some guidance would be... Check your dependency graph, I said. Look for cycles. And Marcus? I let my voice drop, calm and sharp. Next time you think $350 is more valuable than 10 years of experience, remember this moment. Silence. Then a clipped, "Fine." He hung up. By Monday, Rachel had finished her review. Every license violation documented, every timestamp logged, every Slack message proving they knew they were using my personal repos. "This is airtight," she said, sliding the draft letter across the cafe table. "We send this, they'll panic." "Good," I said. She studied me. "You really want to go through with this? You'll be burning the bridge completely." They burned it first. We set the send date for the following Monday. Enough time for Westbridge to believe they'd stabilized, just as the board prepared for its quarterly review. That evening, I poured a glass of wine and stood at my window, watching the city lights blur through the drizzle. My succulent sat on the sill, patient and alive. They thought they'd saved $350. By the time the letter hit their inbox, they would realize what that $350 had really cost. Monday arrived gray and wet, the kind of San Francisco morning that makes the streetlights look tired. I brewed coffee, opened my laptop, and reread Rachel's draft one more time. Demand for payment of licensing fees for unauthorized commercial use. Itemized by library, instance count, and months of use. Invoice totaling $2,120,000 plus statutory interest and legal costs. 14 days to pay or cease all use immediately. Attached. Commit histories from my personal machine, timestamps outside work hours, Slack excerpts where managers approved integrating Lily's personal repo, and the email from the previous CTO acknowledging that my ownership remained mine. "Ready?" Rachel said over the phone. "Send it," I said. At 9:01 a.m., her email left the outbox and slid into Westbridge's legal inbox with a read receipt. I watched my telemetry screen. Quiet, steady, the green pulse of systems still leaning on my work. At 9:18, an auto-reply from their general counsel's office. Received. At 9:37, a calendar invite. Urgent, licensing claim discussion. 30 minutes later with their deputy GC, a senior HR partner, and, of course, Marcus. I joined the call as Lily with counsel. Rachel's square lit up beside mine. The deputy GC began, "Ms. Hayes, Ms. Monroe, we dispute the premise. Any code developed during employment is work for hire." Rachel didn't raise her voice. The code at issue was developed on Ms. Hayes' personal equipment, outside work hours, under an acknowledged exception documented by your previous CTO. You'll find that email in Exhibit C silence, then paper shuffling. "We've seen it," the GC said, voice tighter. "Even so, $2,012,000 is excessive." "It's calculated conservatively," Rachel replied. "Per instance per month below market rates. You are welcome to cease use immediately and owe nothing further." "We can't simply switch off core systems," the HR partner blurted. Rachel let the pause do the work. "Then you should budget for what you've been using." Marcus finally spoke. "This feels like extortion." "It's contract law," I said. "You ignored licenses. You used my work at scale. I sent the invoice you never expected to see." They requested time to confer. We ended the call. 10 minutes later, my dashboard lit up. Dozens of new ephemeral instances spinning, engineers trying to map dependencies. The irony made me laugh into my coffee. Their attempt to understand increased the very usage metrics justifying the invoice. By 11:26, my phone rang. Marcus, directly. I let it go to voicemail, then played it on speaker while I updated a spreadsheet. "Lily, this is Marcus. The board wants to know if there is a number you'd accept to settle quickly. We'll need an NDA. Call me." Rachel called a minute later. They blinked. They want silence, I said. They want time, she corrected. We can give them neither unless the price includes it. At noon, a small storm broke online. A junior developer accidentally pushed an internal doc to a public repo. Nothing explosive, just an architecture diagram showing my libraries in the center of almost everything. Someone screenshotted it before they could pull it. A tech blog posted an item. Westbridge's core built on engineers' personal libraries? The stock dipped another %. My telemetry showed chaos. Rollbacks, restarts, a traffic spike, then a flat line as they froze deployments. At 2:05 p.m., another call. This time, the general counsel and the CFO. Rachel and I joined. No Marcus on the invite. We're prepared to discuss payment. The GC said, voice measured. But we require full confidentiality, a global release, and an ongoing license included. Rachel stayed polite. Past usage is past usage. Payment of the invoice plus fees. If you want future usage, we'll discuss it separately. At market rates, with the support agreement, and my client won't agree to a gag order about her own resume. The CFO cleared his throat. What would market rates look like? Depends on scope, Rachel said. But your alternative is a rewrite. How long will that take? The CFO didn't answer directly. Numbers live behind faces like his. He knew. We'll revert with a formal proposal, the GC said, and the line went dead. I stood and stretched, feeling the tightness between my shoulders release. Outside, the rain had tapered to a mist again. I watched a streetcar slide past and thought of 10 years of invisible labor reduced to an argument over a hotel receipt. At 4:12 p.m., Marcus called again. I answered. You're blowing this out of proportion, he said. The board is furious. If you'd been reasonable... I was reasonable for a decade, I said. That's what kept your dashboards green. I can fix this, he snapped, as if saying it might make it true. Just tell me the number. It isn't about a number to you. It's about control. Tell your board they hired a CTO who didn't read the licenses. He swore under his breath. You won't work in this town again. Marcus, I said gently, that's the part you don't get. I'm already working on my terms. I hung up, then shut my laptop and let the apartment go quiet. For the first time since that Monday morning elevator ride, I felt something like anger lift off my chest and drift out with the steam from my mug. At 7:53 p.m., my phone buzzed with a text from an old colleague in finance. Emergency board session. You didn't hear it from me, but they're done with him. I didn't reply. I didn't gloat. I stood at the window and watched the city lights come on, one by one. At 9:06 p.m., Rachel called. It's official. Leadership update. CTO transition effective immediately. They've asked for a meeting tomorrow to finalize payment of the invoice and begin license negotiations. I closed my eyes, exhaled. The number mattered. The principle mattered more. They thought they saved $350, I said. Now they know what it cost. Sleep, Rachel said. Tomorrow we put this in writing. I set my phone face down, the room dim but warm, the succulent on the sill catching the last of the streetlight. Somewhere in a conference room I used to patch with pizza and patience. A chair sat empty. The board had learned a lesson. Marcus had learned a lesson. And I, finally, was done being invisible. By morning, the rain was a mist. Rachel and I rode to the 23rd floor without speaking. The same elevator that carried me down with a guard now carried me up as a guest. In the conference room, the deputy GC, the CFO, 2 from procurement, and an engineer I trusted, Elena Cho, interim CTO, on the placard. No, Marcus. The deputy GC began. Ms. Hayes, Ms. Monroe, thank you for coming. We'd like to resolve past use and discuss a path forward. Rachel nodded. Numbers first. The CFO slid a schedule across the table. We accept the invoice as presented. $2,120,000 for past licensing. We'll cover external legal costs. $41,300. Wire within 3 business days. I exhaled. And the future? Elena leaned forward. We want to keep using your libraries. They work. We'll do it correctly. Rachel slid our proposal over. 3-year commercial license, unlimited internal use within current product scope. Annual fee, $360,000 billed quarterly. Optional support on time and materials capped at 40 hours per quarter. No exclusivity. Ownership stays with Ms. Hayes. Procurement exchanged a look. The CFO did math. We can live with that, he said. 2 conditions. Mutual non-disparagement limited to public statements and confidentiality on specific financial terms. Acceptable, Rachel said, provided Ms. Hayes can describe her role as a vendor and list Westbridge as a client. Agreed, the GC said. We'll also update travel policy for emergency spend. That should have been obvious. Elena met my eyes. I'm sorry for how this happened. I nodded. Thank you. We spent an hour on operational details, how the license keys would be issued, what telemetry was allowed, security sign-off, and a deprecation plan if they ever replaced a module. Before we left, the CFO asked, Do you want a statement? Publish an engineering blog post on how you evaluate open source and internal tools, I said. Credit maintainers, don't mention me. Elena smiled. We can do that. In the elevator down, Rachel bumped my shoulder. Terms, not favors, she said. Terms, not favors, I echoed. The wire hit the next afternoon, the invoice and the fees. I took a photo and closed the laptop. I didn't celebrate. I slept. Weeks settled into a new routine. I formed an LLC, documented what only I could decipher, wrote migration guides, added tests. 2 former colleagues asked about licenses at their new companies. A startup in Oakland emailed. Then a healthcare platform in Portland. My calendar filled without a recruiter in sight. Westbridge stabilized under Elena. We spoke once a month, not as boss and employee, but as 2 engineers who preferred systems that worked to decks that sparkled. After their first quiet quarter, she wrote, Thank you. We slept. I forwarded it to Rachel with a single line. Worth it. I kept the $350 hotel receipt in a clear frame on my desk. Not a trophy, a label for a specimen. A reminder that neglect is expensive, that reading matters, that invisible work is only invisible until you remove it. One Saturday, I repotted the succulent from my old desk. It had 2 offshoots. I put one in a clay pot with a note. For the ops team, water weekly, read the runbooks. I left it with the guard for Elena. No flourish, just a quiet instruction. 6 months later, Westbridge published the engineering post. It wasn't dramatic. It didn't mention me. It talked about budgeting for maintenance and respecting licenses the way you respect a power contract or a lease. The comments were mundane and supportive. Exactly right. That night, I walked home in a light rain and thought about the message I wanted to leave when people watch this story. Not that revenge pays, though sometimes it does. Not that lawyers win, though good ones help. The message was smaller and heavier. Put value where the work is. Read what you sign. Pay for what you use. Don't confuse quiet with replaceable. They fired me over a $350 hotel bill. The invoice didn't just end a resume line, it rewrote my job description. I'm not anyone's ghost now. I'm a name on a contract, a line item in a budget, a maintainer who answers to uptime and ethics in equal measure. The city was silver with mist when I reached my building. I dried the succulent's leaves, set it back on the sill, and opened my laptop. Somewhere, in racks I'll never see, my libraries ticked forward. Reliable work at a fair price. I pushed a small update, wrote a clean commit message, and closed the lid. They thought $350 could erase me. It turned out to be the exact cost of learning my worth.